Goeienaand en baie welkom by Fokus. Ek is Lenet Francis. Ons hoop almal se nuwe jaar is nou al goed op dreef. Bietjie later praat ons oor die vernietigende brande in Australië en ons gesels met 'n Australiese skrywer oor sy boeke wat almal in Suider-Afrika afspeel. Eskom bly in die nuus al het Suid-Afrika daarom nou vir meer as 'n week nie beurtkrag gehad nie. Net meer as 'n week gelede het die Eskom-voorsitter Jabu Mabuza bedank en professor Malagapuru William Makgoba is die afgelope week aangewys as die tussentydse voorsitter. Nou eis twee vakbonde, die mynwerkersunie, die NUM, en die metaalwerkersvakbond NUMSA, dat die hele Eskom-raad moet bedank. Ons praat nou met NUMSA woordvoerder Pakemeli Shlubi Majola, and thanks very much for coming in this evening. So happiness that Jabu Mabuza resigned, but Professor Malagapuru Makgoba is now the interim chair.
Well, I think first and foremost for us, Professor Makgoba, whilst he does have, pretty good qualifications and credentials based on his previous work in the medical and health industry, for us, we continue to believe that he is the wrong person for the job. He's part of the original board that we, from the beginning, have been highlighting would be problematic. From the moment that President Ramaphosa made the announcement of this board, which Professor Makgoba was part of, we said it would have disastrous consequences. We're seeing that now, stage 6 load shedding. And for us, we continue to say that he must also go. The entire board of Eskom, in our view, is directly responsible for this crisis that we find ourselves in. This is the same board that we must remind the public that lied to the president about stage 6 load shedding. So if you're going to say that Professor Makgoba must continue, then what's changed? Nothing has changed. It's just a continuation of all of the disasters that have continued under their watch without them intervening directly.
The fact that Professor Makgoba is there and one of the longest serving members of the board, isn't that at least encouragement that if you have to hold anybody accountable, there is firstly the form of continuity and secondly someone and some people to keep accountable if you get rid of everybody?
The problem we have is that there is no accountability when it comes to Eskom, and that's actually at the heart of the crisis. You have Eskom, as we know, is hugely in debt, and those debts are as a result of certain things. First and foremost, extremely high coal costs. This has been a situation at Eskom since 2007 at least, and there's been no intervention from previous boards and even this board. What makes the problem at Eskom worse is the overruns at Medupi and Kusile. Again, no intervention from the board. So what we've seen, in our view, is a board that's done everything in its power not to intervene in the areas that are causing a crisis in Eskom. This is a board that has allowed, for example, the renewable energy independent power producers to continue, even though they're crippling Eskom's balance sheet. They're not intervened in those areas which are directly affecting Eskom. And now we're at a point of stage 6 load shedding. They clearly lack the skills in order to turn this entity around. We're saying let them step aside, let us get people with the skills who can do this work. As NUMSA, we've been very clear that Eskom is an entity that requires engineers and people with the skills to run such an entity, and the board should be a reflection of that. We've demanded, for example, that the board must be made up of engineers and it must include representatives of business, labor, civil society and government. That's actually the only way that we can get the accountability that we need.
So you a little bit more positive with the appointment of Jan Oberholzer, seeing that he has a history also with Eskom and does understand the nitty-gritty of the functioning of the entity?
Our concerns with Jan Oberholzer are along the lines of the fact that his experience is restricted to distribution within Eskom. He has a lot of experience selling electricity. He is not an engineer and he does not come from that background. When you are at that level and you are in operations where the work, the actual nuts and bolts is, you need somebody, in our view, with engineering experience. And we believe that under his tenure, we've not been able to see Eskom turn around. He does not have the right ability to ensure that at that level we're seeing the maintenance that is required. That's why we find ourselves at stage 6 load shedding.
But what do you say to the fact that the board and the new appointments director and Oberholzer have said, allow us time, we have strategies in place, we want to implement that? Because now you're also asking for Minister Pravin Gordhan to go.
You know, I think if we can summarize our position here, it's ultimately that we want this government to stop doing the same thing and hoping for different results. You keep appointing people that don't know what they're doing and then you expect miracles. I think Pravin Gordhan has demonstrated to everyone that when it comes to state-owned entities, he doesn't actually know what he's doing. South African Airways has collapsed. It's now under business rescue. Eskom is at stage 6 load shedding. He's shown, Denel can't pay salaries. We believe that we need people who are interested in turning our SOEs around, who are going to run the ministry. And going down, all the way down to the management of Eskom, you need people at the helm with engineering abilities. If you're not going to fulfill that job spec in that way, then you shouldn't be surprised if the crisis continues. And this is why we are deeply concerned, because we're not seeing the types of radical decision-making that must take place in order to change Eskom's fortunes.
Has there been consultation with some of the unions with regard to the changes and the time frames that we've been hearing Eskom banter about?
We're very worried as unions because we've not engaged meaningfully with management, and we've raised this on many different platforms. As we speak, we are still in the dark about the full extent of the nature and form of this unbundling that they keep talking about. We have forums with them, and yet they've not been forthright about this type of information. And this for us is part of the reason why we're very suspicious, because they don't reveal all the facts. A lot of information we find out through the media, and it's become very clear to us that they're not acting in the interests of South Africans as a whole.
Camilla, thanks for coming in this evening. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Net hierna praat ons oor die brande wat in Australië verwoesting saai. Bly ingeskakel. Welkom terug by Fokus. Beeldmateriaal van die verwoestende brande is die afgelope maande wêreldwyd versprei. Minstens 28 mense is dood in die brande. Hoewel die dodetal laer is as vorige jare se brande, word steeds beskou as die ergste ooit. Meer as 0,5 miljard diere is dood en die verwoesting van die natuur en eiendom is massief. Ons is nou via Skype in verbinding met 'n oud-Suid-Afrikaner wat al 19 jaar in Australië woon, Melanie Botha. Sy werk ook as 'n vrywillige brandbestryder. Melanie praat egter in haar persoonlike hoedanigheid met ons en nie namens die brandweer nie. En goeiemôre aan jou, maar dis aand hier in Suid-Afrika. Melanie, dankie dat jy by ons aangesluit het.
Hallo, hoe gaan dit?
Dit gaan goed, dankie vir jou tyd vanaand. Vertel vir ons en gee vir ons insig van jou werk die afgelope ruk as vrywillige brandweervrou.
Ja, ons is ek moet sê redelik besig. Ons word net uitgeroep wanneer ons obviously nodig is om te gaan. Hulle het ons laas naweek uitgestuur na 'n baie klein dorpie, die naam is Bakken. En ons het daar gaan help. Die vure was klaar daardeur gewees. So ons het gaan help om soos in skoon te maak, mense wat hulp nodig het op hulle plase of eiendomme, bome op te saag wat op die paaie lê, want daar's baie paaie wat nog toegemaak is. So daai area is redelik goed, want stootskrapers is al daardeur en al daai goeders, maar ons kom in as die CFA en dan maak ons skoon. Ons kyk of daar nog areas is wat brand en ons maak dit dood dan en intussen dat daar nie nuwe vure begin nie.
Wat is die PWA in so 'n geval, veral omdat jy 'n vrywillige werker is? Is daar 'n oorhoofse plan en dan skakel julle as vrywillige werkers in by daardie plan? Word julle uitgeroep? Word daar vir julle gesê waarheen julle moet gaan?
Ja, kyk, ons het almal programme op ons fone en ons het ook pagers wat ons na ons name kan stuur as ons beskikbaar is, want baie van ons werk. So jy gaan basies wanneer jy kan gaan. Daar is baie organisasies wat mense voorwerk wat wel mense wat in die CFA vrywillig brandweergoeders doen. Hulle laat gaan op 'n kan betaal of onbetaald wees natuurlik. So wanneer jy kan gaan, sit jy 'n naam op, hulle laat weet jou vroegtydig die areas wat jy toe kan gaan. Dit kan wel verander as die vure intussen verander of hulle word geblus of jy is miskien meer nodig op 'n ander plek. En dan basies word jy na die hoofkantoor toe gevat en hulle afhangende van waar dit is, busse vat jy na die kampe toe waar jy slaap en dan word jy van daar af uitgestuur na die areas toe waar jy benodig word of jy, ek weet toe en julle sou dit gesien het, Malakuta was 'n groot naam wat gereeld hier opgekom het vir die Gippsland area in Victoria, waar hulle actually opgeëindig het en mense moes op bote, soos weermagbote en vliegtye sit om hulle te ontruim, maar hulle het ons CFA mense ingevlieg ook om te gaan help.
Jy het verwys na die tonele wat ons hier in Suid-Afrika en die res van die wêreld gesien het, maar wat is daar die eerstehandse tonele wat vir jou aangrypend was, wat ons nie aan blootgestel is nie?
Weet jy wat, ek het nie regtig, jy weet wat se brand en jy weet wat se bosbrand, maar jy weet nie regtig wat jy gaan sien tot jy nie daar is nie. Ek dink vir my die grootste ding was gewees die area, die hoeveelheid area, en ek was maar net in, soos ek sê, in 'n klein dorpie gewees, maar 'n groot deel, ek praat soos bos of soos soos in groot areas met hoë bome, baie groei plante, obviously diere, maar ook areas met laag gras om huise, soos in die groot, 'n baie groot area is basies swart, is gebrand.
Geef vir ons 'n idee van die atmosfeer tans in Australië. Ons sien diere wat gered moet word, jy het net verwys na paaie wat nog steeds versper is, waar jy bome moet opsaag, sodat daar net deurgange kan wees.
Ja, soos ek sê, daar is verseker areas wat verseker nog paaie het wat versper is. So dit ek weet verseker Malakuta byvoorbeeld het ek gesien, die mense kan nou begin aansoek doen om actually terug te gaan na hulle eiendomme toe. So hulle word geëskort of iemand gaan saam met hulle om hulle veilig te hou na hulle eiendomme toe. Want dit was 'n redelike groot brand wat daardeur is. Ek dink ek weet nie regtig hoeveel van die areas is gered nie. Ek kan nie, want ek was nie self daar nie. Maar in Buchan self ek dink daar's omtrent van wat ek gelees het, want ek kon obviously nie oral sien nie, is daar ek dink ten minste 22 eiendomme wat gebrand het. Maar ek moet sê afgesien van dit, Almal natuurlik, as jy net op Facebook gaan en al die plekke, almal is vreeslik hartseer. Ek meen, ja, die mense se emosies is hoog. Mense is baie behulpsaam daar. Ek moet sê, ek dink van alle dinge om dit positief te maak, is verseker die manier hoe die Australianers nou saamtrek en mekaar help. En dis nie net mense wat nie geaffekteer is deur die vure nie, maar dis ook mense wat wel geaffekteer is deur die vure, wat ek self gesien het, hoe hulle mekaar help en ons help, dat ons werk kan doen vir hulle op 'n daaglikse basis.
So op die oomblik hier neem jy 'n blaaskans, is daar nog sekere areas wat jy uitgeroep word na?
Ja, daar kan, kyk, daar's vir ons gesê, die vure kan nog vir 'n hele paar weke, maande brand. Dit hang af van natuurlik waar dit sit, want baie van die vure is in areas wat jy nie kan by uitkom nie. Ons kan nie trokke instuur nie. Hulle moet byvoorbeeld helikopters of soos wat ons dit sal noem bombers instuur om sulke goeders te doen. Dan die ander ding is ook reënval. Reënval help natuurlik, maar reënval kan ook teen ons stel in sekere maniere. Maar dit kan nog vir weke brand. Daar is verseker baie werk. Ons doen nie net ons bestry nie net vure nie, soos ek sê, ons gaan na die tyd ook in, daar is 'n hele proses van, soos ons noem hulle parks, firefighters, hulle kom in, hulle moet bome merk wat onveilig is, dan moet masjinerie ingaan, bome afsny of omstoot wat onveilig is, dan kom ons in en ons kan die res van die goeders doen en help met met kleinere goederes wat op die paaie lê, skoonmaak, kos, daar's baie kos wat mense aangestuur het wat by ons brigades lê, wat ons moet ronddra, of hulle gaan uit, trokke wat moet inkom, wat mense moet kos gee. Dis 'n hele proses.
Melanie, baie dankie dat jy vroeg opgestaan het om vanaand met ons te gesels hier in Suid-Afrika. Sterkte en ons gebede is met julle.
Baie dankie, dis my plesier. Ek's altyd hier so.
Bly ingeskakel. Net hierna gesels ons met 'n Australiese skrywer oor sy voorliefde vir Suider-Afrika. Moenie weggaan nie, ons is nou terug. Australiese romanskrywer Tony Park skryf graag sy boeke in Suid-Afrika. Boonop speel die meeste van sy romans in Suider-Afrika af. Tony was onlangs in Suid-Afrika en het met Fokus se Alet van Rensburg uitgesels oor sy voorliefde vir Afrika.
Welcome to Fokus.
Thank you very much.
Tonight we want to talk about your latest novel, first of all. You've written 60 novels from what I understand already. This one is called Ghosts of the Past. And all your novels have got an African flavour to it. Now, you're Australian, but let's first, before we get to that part, I want to ask you, give us a very short summary of what this latest novel is all about.
Yeah, thanks, Alette. Ghosts of the Past is set in the past and the present. It starts off during the Anglo-Boer War and then moves pretty quickly to the conflict between the Nama and Herero people against the Germans in what was Southwest Africa, now Namibia. And the modern parallel is descendants of a guy who fought in both of those conflicts, going back to find out what happened to his ancestor and to find a missing treasure. The other interesting thing about it is it's based on a true story, and it's actually about a young Australian who came to South Africa to fight in the war here, and for some reason stayed in Africa and joined that independence struggle in Namibia. So that's basically what the book's about.
Now, that's the part I'm interested in. I've heard before that there were Australians who fought in the Anglo-Boer War. What did your research show? What is the story?
It's incredibly interesting. The real-life guy who the book is based on, a guy called Edward Presgrave, he was so full of patriotic fervour to defend the British Empire that he, and actually his father, jumped on a ship from Australia to sail to South Africa to join the war on the British side. So a lot of Aussies, in that we were a very fledgling nation at that time, came here to fight on the British side. But the interesting thing that my research uncovered was that there's a lot of evidence to say that during the course of that war, they almost felt more sympathy with their enemies, with the Boers, with the farmers they were fighting. Many of these Aussies came from a rural background, from the land, and fought in mounted units very similar to what the commandos were doing. And the business of burning farms and locking up the women and children into concentration camps did not sit well with these colonial Australian soldiers. So by the end of the war, many of them were very disillusioned with the way the war had been fought under Lord Kitchener. And I've put that into the book, because I think it's a very important kind of historical observations that our two peoples probably had more in common than they did with the British that they were fighting for or against.
Now, you have got a lot of, you're also very involved in nature conservation. And that's another aspect of this book, is the wild horses of Namibia. And that also goes back to the war. What is the story with the wild horses?
Yeah, my wife and I are both very passionate about conservation. When I was travelling in Namibia to research this book, a lot of the action in the true story and in the novel does take part in the southern part of Namibia where the wild horses exist. Now, the wild horses, the most common theory is that they're descended from mounts that escaped or were released during the First World War when South Africa invaded German Southwest Africa at the behest of the British. And those horses have lived all this time since then, probably since around the First World War. My novel has a slightly different premise, that maybe the horses came from earlier stock. But the interesting thing from a conservation point of view, which I've put into the book, is those horses are now in threat because of a number of years of drought in Namibia and an increase in the number of spotted hyenas, a native predator. The horse numbers are now starting to go down. So there's quite a controversy in Namibia at the moment about kind of which is more deserving of protection, the horses or the hyenas. Both are protected as species in Namibia at the moment. So I wanted to get some of that conflict and some of that controversy into the book, because it's a very interesting conservation question, we've got these animals that are actually introduced, but are now regarded as something of a national treasure in Namibia, and they're under threat from the native wildlife. So it's a really tricky conservation conundrum, that one.
Now, the big question is, you an Aussie, a proper Aussie, how did you get involved with Africa that most of your books have got this African flavour?
Yeah, it's really interesting. My wife and I came to Southern Africa in 1995 for a safari holiday to South Africa, Zimbabwe and Botswana. And it was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime trip, but it turned into anything but. I don't know what happened to us, but I know other foreigners that it's happened to. You either breathe something in, or you drink something, or you get bitten by something. But this amazing continent, and in particular this amazingly beautiful country here in South Africa, just reaches out and grabs you. And it's like it wraps its thorny tendrils around your heart and hooks you. And we knew probably by the end of the first week of that holiday that this would not be once in a lifetime. We would have to come back. We came back the next year on holiday, and the year after, and the year after, and the year after. And it was around about that time that I started getting serious about following my dream, which was to write a novel. And as it happened, I found the inspiration for my book on one of my trips to Africa.
And you write in Africa as well, I believe.
Yeah, I find that as someone who is from overseas, the best way I can do my research is actually not so much research, but just observe. So as far as possible, these novels that I write, they're actually set wherever I happen to be at the time. So I was in Namibia when I was writing Ghosts of the Past. My wife and I now have a house on the edge of the Kruger Park, so it's no mistake that several of my books are set around the Kruger Park, because that's where I spend quite a lot of time. And I find that just by looking, listening, observing, you can capture the sights, the sounds, the smell of the African bush, and also delve into cultures, the way people speak, their turn of phrase, what motivates them, current issues, and that's how I write my book. So I very much write the first draft of the book here in Africa.
One of your books you refer to Sonny van Rensburg, or van Rensburg as we say in Afrikaans.
Yeah.
He was a detective,
Yeah.
Afrikaans detective. That's also, there's a bit of truth, it's based on a bit of truth. Tell us a bit more about that book.
Yeah, it's interesting. She works in the Lowveld, and her career has moved from Pretoria back out to the Lowveld where her family is. And she's kind of, I guess my characters aren't based on actual people, but they're certainly inspired by people I met. And I've come across some pretty inspirational female police officers in the South African Police Service. And Sanny's career has kind of followed the trends in law enforcement. In the later books, she now is based at Skukuza in the anti-poaching unit there as well, which of course, particularly where we stay out in Mpumalanga, has become a huge focus for police resources and the military and the National Park Service. So she's on the front line of anti-poaching, defending rhinos and other endangered species.
A very last question, very quickly. South Africa is experiencing a lot of problems at the moment. There's a lot of violence, there's a lot of lawlessness. How do you, as an Australian who comes here regularly, do you think we are going to make it through this difficult period?
In the books I've researched and written, set in South Africa and even troubled countries like Zimbabwe, I think if there's one thing that strikes me as a visitor, as an Australian, that is greater than the scale of problems that people face, and the crime and the trauma and the corruption, if there's one thing that's greater than all of those, it is that thing called the indomitable human spirit. The ability of good people to come together more often at the village and community level to tackle evil, to find solutions to problems, to work together to bring about a better South Africa. I see examples of that every single day where I live, of people, good people working together to change things. That's what inspires me about South Africa, and that's what keeps me coming back.
En dis al vir vanaand, maar Fokus word nou weer elke Vrydagoggend van 9:30 tot 10:00 op SABC 2 herhaal. Ons is ook steeds op YouTube beskikbaar. Onthou ons afspraak, sonnaande 6:00 net hier op SABC 2. En ons lees jou kommentaar, jou tweets en jou voorstelle. Jy kan dit vir ons stuur aan Fokus by sabc.co.za. Jy kan ons Fokus blad op Facebook besoek. Dis by Fokus SABC en dan ook op Twitter by Fokus.za. Baie dankie vir die saamkyk. Ons hoop jy het 'n goeie week wat vorentoe vir jou voorlê. Totsiens.